I've always been very visually quick learner. So there's never been something where I was like, no, there's no way I can do that. It's like that one's going to be more difficult than that one. But if I watch you, I can kind of figure it out. And it was that same thing with the ukulele. I saw him play a couple chords a certain way, and I was like, okay, we got this. I didn't go very much farther than that, but it was a fun moment.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Would you say that acting or having, acting in your background, like obviously you got to get out of your comfort zone quite a bit.
Yeah.
Do you think that's helped you? From what my sister tells me, it helps her just with communication and overall, talking to people. But do you think it's also helped with just performing in front of people? Like I couldn't play the guitar even in front of two people. It's nerve wracking.
Absolutely.
So do you think that helped at all?
100%. I think acting has been, for me, one of the biggest tools that I've ever tried to sharpen or learn how to use, because I started off with no experience and I was absolutely terrible, but I just knew that this is what I wanted to do. I was horrible. And somehow I booked a TV show that now the whole world can see anytime they want to go back and realize how terrible it was. But it's, for me, the best blessing, because I'm like, I can laugh at it and go, check that out. That's where I was, and this is
you
where
were
I'm
good
at now.
on it, man. You were better than you think you were.
Not the first one, but besides that, what happens is, I've spent now a decade learning how people work and watching people and studying and learning myself and how to step more into someone else's shoes and have empathy, because I believe acting is empathy, and then you learn more from somebody else. And one of the greatest things is when you're in front of a room of 200 people and they want you to dance like a chicken. It doesn't matter what you want to do. You're supposed to dance like a chicken. Now, the way you do it is all on you, right? And there's different scales, and art is subjective, but you can tell when someone's a good actor and when somebody's not, when you believe every word they're saying that's coming out of their mouth in that character, whatever it is. But you do enough improv classes, you do enough stuff in front of people, because I was so insecure growing up. I was so hyper conscious of myself. I had no confidence whatsoever. Working out for me helped me with that. And then acting was the biggest thing. Of just, one of the best lessons I had was on that show that I was terrible. And one of the actresses, I couldn't get the words out because there was 3 cameras in my face, 200 people around me. It was my first time ever really acting, all this stuff. And she pulled me aside and she goes, okay, what you need to do is stop giving a F, what anyone else thinks. I don't care what the director thinks, don't care what the cameraman, don't care what the PA thinks, don't care what I think. None of it matters. Just go out and do your thing. When you stop caring about what other people in the world, and that was for me too. I grew up with social media, or when I started social media, it took off for me in a funny way. I went viral for a man bun, which is one of the dumbest, but also one of my most grateful for things in my life, and here we are. And those two things, where I was subjected to millions and millions of people all at one time, and I heard everything you could possibly hear, positive and negative, about yourself. And people are judging you, calling you every name, everything, making up stories about you, doing all this stuff. And so those two things, of one, I started to realize that I put too much value in people's opinions that didn't truly matter to me. It's what do I care so much what this person's thinking? Who are they that it's so important to me? Now, if it's a family member or someone like that, it makes it more difficult in understanding that. But realize that people are showing up the best they can with what they know. And when they're showing up the best they can with what they know, sometimes them being negative or hurtful or whatever it is that's just where they're at in life. And, it sucks sometimes, but that's okay for them. It doesn't mean you need to invite it in your life. Doesn't mean you need to accept it, but be understanding that that's just where they're at, and that's the best. And one of the best things I've learned was a truly happy person will never say a negative thing about somebody else. So when you figure that out and you realize, oh, that person's talking crap on you, or they're saying this about that guy, or they're doing this behind the back, or whatever it is, they're not happy. There's something in their life, whatever it is, whether it's an insecurity, whether it's a fear, it's a doubt, it's whatever it may be, but it's holding them back from being the highest version of themselves. I call it the Olympian version. We've got multiple different versions, but the Olympian version is like you just walk down off Mount Olympus and you're in perfect form, And when you step and look at that person, well, what would that version of me do? When you're able to look at that and show up in that way, the rest of the stuff, it doesn't matter what the world thinks sometimes, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and I can't even imagine. Well, a little bit, but everyone has opinions. Everyone has opinions. So you're always gonna, no matter what you're doing, there's someone's. And I've heard this. If people aren't hating on you, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
It's because people aren't noticing you, and there's always going to be someone who disagrees with what you're doing. Whether it be, it could be, you could literally be doing nothing and someone's going to disagree with you existing.
Yeah.
And
and
I've
for
experienced,
no reason.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure you know exactly what that, like there's keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
Is like
it will
bizarre.
It will always tell you more about them than it will about yourself.
For sure.
And understanding that. And so acting, to your question, is something that gave me that freedom. And one thing I love about it too is it's a constant evolution. There is no limit to like, oh, I am at this point now and I've reached the pinnacle of acting. You're like, no, because then someone comes out of left field with the craziest, performance you've ever seen in your life. And it's like, there's no limit, because all of a sudden, you might have mastered drama, but have you mastered comedy? Have you mastered being a dragon? As weird as that sounds, have you done all these things? It gives you freedom to just be and to be present. And that's one of the things I love most about it too, is you have to be in that moment. I can't be texting in the middle of a scene, I can't be anywhere else but like as stepping into those shoes or that person or persona or whatever it is, and being that in that moment. And I love that for that reason.
It definitely seems, from the people I've watched get into acting and have acted, George being a very good example.
Oh yeah.
Just communication skills wise, people skills. It's incredible.
I don't know if you have interest in acting, but if you do, you should definitely do it on whatever scale you feel that you want to do it. And, But I remember when we had your dad on, I remember now, you're saying that he had a passion for directing. And I was like, I'm going to talk you into directing one day, man. And it'd be awesome to have you and your sister. I heard she's doing
He was
amazing.
talking about Kaya too. He was saying Kaya's doing some acting stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's Kaya's new.
Yeah.
She's definitely transferring a lot of her energy over to her acting career. I want to say that's her.
Incredible.
That's definitely her primary focus right now.
I think at the time it was like American Horror Story and stuff like that, right? Like she's getting a bunch of, that's so cool to see, man.
Yeah. It's amazing seeing especially your little sister too. Just like, I'm watching a show, American Horror Story too. Like I watched that show before even she decided to start acting. So, you're watching the show and you see your little sister pop up on screen. It's like, it's wild, but it's amazing. It's really a profound career choice. I feel like there's just so much. You never stop learning. And a lot of, there's a lot of jobs, a lot of career choices. You're always learning. But to your point of someone coming in and crushing that role that it's like, then it can reignite that fire. It can, bring you back in. Also, there's those certain things that I'm assuming as an actor that awards maybe, or certain people you'd want to work with, just like modeling, if you're interested in certain brands, you're like, ooh, I want to work with this brand. So let's try to coordinate my career to land this job or something like that. And
I mean, you hear so many people all the time that say, they'll go up to somebody that they've never worked with or haven't even have any relation to, but you'll run into them in the street and say it's like Steven Spielberg, and the actor will go, I'm going to work with you one day. Flash forward 5 years, they're working with him, or whoever it may be. But I've heard so many of those stories of just like exactly what you're saying. You do want to work with some of the greats. I mean, Scorsese, and there's just so many people that, well, they're the best at what they do. Why wouldn't you want to work with them? Christopher Nolan, like there's just so many people. And same goes for acting too, across from actors. I mean, not just people behind the camera. So it is that where you can kind of craft it in whichever way you want if you put in the work and the time. It's a very difficult business, much like modeling, and it's hurry up and wait so much of the time. I never know when my next job's going to be. But then you fall in love with the process of filmmaking and you realize, oh, I can always go make a movie. It's not going to be easy, but I can make one. I can write one. I can direct one. I can produce one. And I could do it on whatever scale, small or who knows, maybe Warner Brothers wants to give me a $100 million film to let me direct for some crazy reason. It's not impossible. It's pretty highly unlikely, but it's not impossible, and you could put in the work to get there.
Absolutely. And from being on set, from learning all these skills, whether you're playing a role or, being around just certain people, you then feel like, through the years, you've gained those skills where, let's say that opportunity does arise, you'll be able to, take the full, just really make the most of it with what you've learned.
Exactly.
So I think that's great. No, it's super. It's fun, super
man.
cool.
It's exciting, and it's also fun. Like there's a part of it that's fun, not knowing what comes next. Because then I've had calls where I had no idea I was doing it. I get the call and be like, "Oh, you're going to be on set at Euphoria tomorrow." I'm like, "Okay, I'm there." But but it's a wild ride, but it's something that keeps you on your toes and it's exciting and it's fun. At the end of the day, like it's not even about money to me. I love it.
Yeah.
I would do it for free, and I have, and I will continue to, So we'll see what happens.
Thank you for watching Studio 22.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And follow our socials at Studio 22 Podcast.